This is just another platform for women to prove their worth, and I am certain that's exactly what they will do. She made mention of Impact Wrestling right there, which, of course, she most recently worked for Impact Wrestling. Now, she's moved on to other things. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because 5 years ago, Impact Wrestling put on the first ever all-female pay-per-view featuring Gail Kim, Madison Rayne, Rosemary, and others. So for WWE to turn around and say it's the first ever, I just think it was a slap in the face, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just thought it was an insult to any female wrestler that has worked for WWE that maybe went on to Impact Wrestling, to totally ignore the historical fact that they were the first ones. Now, if you wanted, like I said, if you wanted to say, hey, this is the first ever all-female pay-per-view in the history of WWE, hell, that's a proven fact. That is a great, great thing. I spoke to another female wrestler, a former WWF and WWE Women's Champion, a total era of wrestling that got ignored during that announcement. The current NWA Women's Champion, Jazz. She said, I must say last night was an epic night. We have been trying to prove for so many years that we belong in the business. It's time for fans and fellow male wrestlers to give us the respect that we have been proving for so long, that we as women are more than tits and ass. And everybody knows Jazz. Jazz doesn't really sugarcoat anything. Women's wrestling has evolved to a place to where we are now being allowed to close out shows as main events. I'm so proud of the women that I've watched grow from young ladies being considered green to where they are now vets in the game. And I said, do you feel that women's wrestling has gone 360 degrees since the days of Alundra, Sherry, Robin, to bra panties and wrestling of today? She said, hell yeah. See, bra and panties matches was something that Jazz would have never done. When I broke in, I trained with men, I worked with men, I studied nothing but men's matches. I never watched one girl's match when I was able to study film. I knew just how I wanted to excel in the business. It's not about how many bumps you take or how stiff a blow was. To me, it was still all about how fast you get back up and still be in the fight. I treat a match like a fight. Fights are believable. Hopping from rope to rope is not what's considered a fight. So to answer your question, yes, women's wrestling should never go back to that bullshit. Pillow fights and bikinis matches. These women today are hungry and have paid their dues and deserve every moment that they are receiving at this time. I couldn't agree more. And like I said, Jazz does not sugarcoat. So like this is her coming from the heart. Gail Kim was quoted on her Twitter saying that she is very happy and proud of women's wrestling today. And a fan asked her if she would ever appear at the pay-per-view if WWE invited her, and she flat out said no, that she was ever to return to wrestling, it would always be at Impact. She has been with WWE on 2 different occasions and did not enjoy either time of her stays at WWE. Like I said, I have reached out to numerous female wrestlers from the days of the 70s and 80s to the 90s and the 2000s till today. Some just didn't want to, whether it was they, politically correct, they didn't want to say the wrong thing and have it come back and bite them in the ass. Some gave us some quotes, but my whole thing is, again, WWE constantly attempting to rewrite history in the version that WWE is the only one that exists on this planet. And we all know that's not true. The internet does not allow facts to go uncovered. You can't go on national television and say something like, this is the first ever all-female pay-per-view, when it's not true. And it literally takes 8 seconds to type it up on Google to figure out that that's not true. So now if you're just trying to cater to little kids and hope that they don't utilize the internet for research, then who are you really fooling? Because those little kids aren't the ones that are buying merchandise. It's the parents that are. So you can't only cater to children. Yes, it's a family program, but again, those kids aren't buying tickets and driving themselves to the shows. Their parents are. So if you want the future generation to get into wrestling, then start off by being honest with them. Nobody said you had to go out and say, hey, Impact did it first, but hey, we're going to do it too. No, you just say, hey, the first time in the history of the WWE, we are putting on our first ever all-female pay-per-view. And nobody would think anything less of you. Actually, you'd probably be more respected because you acknowledge that it's been done before by somebody else. Do you want to do it better? Probably. Will you? Probably. You have more money and you have the means to do that. But one thing I hope does not happen is they start rolling out all the former wrestlers from back in the day to take part in matches. I don't want to see, and no offense, I do not want to see Trish Stratus. I do not want to see Lita. That's fine for the all-female Royal Rumble. But I do not want to see full 4 to 8 to 10 plus minute matches featuring Tori Wilson or Beth Phoenix. This is a showcase of today's women's wrestling. The whole reason why you're doing this is because you're trying to make people forget about the era of women's wrestling between the 80s and now. Bra and panties matches. Silly diva matches that lasted 45 seconds. Christmas helper matches. All these matches that included people like Tori Wilson, Beth Phoenix, Trish Stratus, Lita, Layla, Cameron, even Naomi, who's still there. The Bellas. This is about today. This is about Charlotte, Asuka, Ember Moon, Becky Lynch, Paige, Carmella, Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax, Nikki Cross, and all the females at NXT. It's about them. You have enough females on your current roster and at NXT. And the ones that you're bringing in for the Mae Young Classic to not have to bring in the wrestlers from 15, 20 years ago. This is about selling women's wrestling now. Not from 2003. Not from 1995. So, please, for the love of wrestling, we have to sit through 3 hours of Monday Night Raw, which is torture in itself. We have to sit through SmackDown, NXT, 205 Live, monthly, sometimes twice a month, pay-per-views, every single month. Don't fuck this up. That's all the fans ask. Don't screw it up. Because your MO is to do things that you shouldn't do and overdo storylines and everything else. This is about talent. We don't need storylines for this pay-per-view. Yes, the title matches, whoever the champion is, whether it's Carmella or Alexa Bliss, whoever it is. You want to have a shock and awe effect with this pay-per-view? Don't make Carmella or Alexa Bliss defend the title in the main event. I don't want to see Ronda Rousey in the main event. I want to see your two best female wrestlers in the main event. And I'm sorry, it's not Carmella, it's not Alexa Bliss, it's not Ronda Rousey. It's not Nia Jax. I want to see your two best female wrestlers go at it in the main event. You have to now till then to build that. Don't start throwing a hodgepodge of garbage together and then go, oh crap, what do we do? Well, we really don't want to use Alicia Fox. Well, Naomi's been pretty much irrelevant for the last month and a half. What are we going to do with Natalya? No. They need to be involved. They are this current generation. Were they back? Were they there during the Divas? Yes, they were. But they're still here. And there's a reason why they're still here. It's because they had the talent that you're trying to display now. They had the talent then, but they weren't allowed to use it. Now they are. Now that's what we want to see. You made NXT to develop new talent. In this case, female. Okay? You've brought up so much talent from NXT. Your SmackDown GM was the first ever NXT Women's Champion, Paige. Don't screw this up. Because you can't go back from this. You can't screw this up and then try to sell a second all-women's pay-per-view at another date and think that people are going to buy your bullshit. It's just not going to happen. So, for the Alundra Blazes, the Wendy Richters, the Leilani Kais, the Rockin' Robins, the Jazz, Victoria, and all those female athletes and wrestlers and stars that didn't have this opportunity, make sure you're not only doing it for now, you're doing it for them. And acknowledge them for Christ's sake. To sit there on national television and only acknowledge the generation of female wrestlers starting at the Divas division was an absolute slap in the face. I'm sorry. But wrestling existed in females way before the Divas. So please don't screw this up. Do it for Molly Holly. Do it for Sable. Do it right for female wrestling. For once, give the fans what they want. And for you to name it Evolution was another joke. An absolute joke. You've been calling the women's division female wrestling. It's the women's division. It's the evolution of wrestling. We understand that. We understand it's the evolution of female wrestling. We get it. But why use the word evolution as the pay-per-view name when Triple H, Ric Flair, Batista, Randy Orton, one of the most famous stables in WWE history, was called Evolution, and a song made for them by Motorhead? Why would you name it that? There's really nothing else you could have came up with. That was the best that your creative minds came up with? To rename it after Triple H's stable? I mean, that just makes Triple H look like he's got the largest ego on the planet Earth. That he had to name it after his own stable. He had to put his own personal stamp on this pay-per-view. I said on multiple Facebook posts and Twitter, and I even tweeted Triple H, that this should have been called, if you're going to use the word evolution, it should have been called the Women's Evolution, or it should have been called 360 Degrees. Because anybody with half a brain would have realized exactly what that meant. For where women wrestling came from, where it went, and what it is now. It has made a complete 360-degree circle with all the garbage stuck in the middle. So, to me, that's an ego, putting your personal stamp of approval on your own idea. And if that's the way, everybody wants Vince McMahon to step aside. Vince McMahon, please, stop. You're out of touch. You don't know anything anymore. Let Triple H run the company. He's run NXT. He's done a